This essay example, as well as thousands of others, is available in text format on our website for free and without registration. Simply Google Ivy Panda Free Essays.
According to Karpov, one shortcoming of this approach is that Vygotsky did not explain how new adolescent motives develop. In Vygotsky's view, the change in the motives of adolescence comes about due to the growth of sexual desires and needs, which are a result of their ability to think logically. The mistake here is that he did not elaborate on how that growth occurs, and moreover, this view on motive development does not concur with some of the previous views that Vygotsky had stated earlier. For instance, he did not agree with some researchers' failure to differentiate between the growth of motive thinking processes and thinking processes. In the same case, he made a similar mistake by not clearly distinguishing how the motive and ability for self-reflection in adolescence grow. Instead, he argues that both of these are a result of logical thought. Vygotsky also disapproved of those researchers who said that when a new behavior is formed, a new driving force is formed simultaneously. His view was that when a need is formed, the logical thinking that helps to satisfy the need is not yet formed. Thus, he concluded that a motive must develop first before the skill to do it does. In his theory, however, Vygotsky said that formal logical thinking in adolescence leads to the formation of motives and the ability to self-reflect. This could mean that motive and ability here develop simultaneously, and hence, he should not have faulted the above theory. Another shortcoming of Vygotsky's approach is that adolescence transition to formal logical thought by itself is insufficient to explain such an achievement of this period as self-consciousness. Earlier in his book, Vygotsky noted that adolescents develop self-consciousness as they interact with other people in society, but he failed to distinguish between the two since his arguments were centered on how school contributes to the growth of formal logical thinking. During adolescence, adolescents learn to interact with their peers. According to Vygotsky, this is the leading activity. When such leading activities are formed, adolescents use society's behavioral norms and observations from adults as the basis of their behavior. This leads to self-awareness, a major accomplishment that prepares them for adulthood. When involved in these leading activities, adolescents develop new abilities and motives that are higher than the current leading activity. This helps them move to the following leading activity associated with development in that specific period. At this stage, the adolescents are able to think logically, and they feel like the world has opened a whole new life to them. They start to analyze themselves, their feelings, their surroundings, and the society at large. In their interaction with their peers, adolescents involve themselves in discussions on moral issues, and this leads to the development of moral reasoning. Adolescents' interaction with their parents also promotes moral reasoning, but in a slightly different way as compared to that of their peers. When children are involved in discussions with their parents, the reasoning at this point is higher since the parents provide a model and experiences that are different from their peers. On the other hand, when discussions are in relation with their peers, the talks are basically focused on sharing ideas and views based on their own experiences, which in this case are almost similar and of the same level. Failure to lead activities leads to engagement in risky behavior by adolescents. They do this to cope with depressing issues and to overcome the feeling of being inadequate. Consequently, the ability to self-reflect adolescents makes them realize the differences and flaws in the kind of person they currently are and what they aspire to be, bringing about mood disruptions. Adolescents at this stage start feeling that their parents are too demanding and that their rules are infringing on their freedom. This often leads to conflicts with their parents, especially over minor issues, and they tend to throw tantrums at the slightest provocation. The humanistic education movement failed due to several reasons. First, it was opposed by religious groups who felt that this would undermine religion and religious morals in schools. Another reason was that some of the values were not well interpreted by the concerned people in the school setting to enable teachers to use instructional materials as required. Some parents were not also for the idea of introduction of discussion of values in schools. Humanistic education was geared toward introducing a structured form of education where teachers were to be responsible for directing students on activities to be carried out during classroom instruction. In this case, the curriculum maker had to be involved in making such perceived plans. This made teachers lack the confidence to face students without a lesson plan. The reintroduction of the 3 rupees was viewed as bringing about conflicts in human relationships in the classroom. This was due to the assumption that effective development and relationships in a classroom setting did not go well with cognitive development. Some parents, therefore, felt that this would affect their children's academic performance. Did you like this Vygotsky's approach to the analysis of adolescence sample? To get more works like this one, make sure to check out the free database of academic paper examples at ivypanda.com. You will find thousands of samples for all your study needs, without even having to register.